So, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, it's my great honor to be here to make this presentation. And thank you for the invitation. My name is Jiang Xiaodong, and I come from the China Metallurgy Plan Institute. And my topic for today is outlook on the development trend of Chinese steel industry. 3 parts are included in my presentation. The first part is the general situation of China's steel industry. In this part, I will give you a whole picture of the Chinese steel industry at the present. And the second part is the development trend of Chinese steel industry. In this part, I will show you what is going on in China and what will happen in the next decade. And the last one is a brief introduction of my institution, if we have enough time left. And from this picture, it is clearly that the Chinese steel industry has developed a lot since the founding of People's Republic of China, especially after Chinese reform and open up in 1978. According to the Statistical Bureau, Chinese crude steel output reached 928 million tons in 2018, increased by 6.6% year-on-year, while the apparent consumption of domestic crude steel reached 870 million tons. Both of them reached the highest level in the history. Last year, China exported about 69 million tons of steel, declined 8% compared with the year before, while China imported 13 million tons of steel, declined 1 point compared with 2017. And last year, the revenue of Chinese steel industry reached 7.7 trillion RMB, increased almost 14%, and the margin reached 470 billion RMB, increased nearly 40%. By the end of 2018, the average asset ability ratio of Chinese steel industry enterprises was 65%, declined about 2.6 points than the year before. Apparently, Chinese steel output has seen a rapid growth last year, but it is not the real truth. Why? Shortly speaking, maybe it is because of USA. USA President Donald Trump should be blamed. Wrong. Maybe it's wrong. We don't care about Trump at all in terms of steel. Here, U stands for unqualified steel, which didn't include it in the amount of steel output in the past. S stands for the statistical adjustment. That means tens of millions of steel output were hidden in the past. A stands for a stable surging market, which enables a solid base for the growth of steel output. For example, you can see the investment in real estate and manufacture grow rapidly, which created much more opportunity for the steel consumption. For the details of steel consumption in main downstream sectors, you can see from this slide. Construction consumed about 430 million tons of steel, accounting for about 52%. And machinery consumed about 140 million tons of steel, accounting for nearly 17%, while automobile and energy industry respectively accounting for 6.5% and 4%. When it comes to 2019, we believe that steel consumption will still remain in a high level, but differs in sectors. For the construction, automobile, and energy sector, a slight drop is expected in China. And for machinery, home appliance, and shipbuilding, we are likely to see a tiny growth. As far as railway and container is concerned, the two sectors may see a happy time for a much higher demand. So instead of year-on-year change, if we look at Chinese steel in the long run, something special may come out. Generally speaking, for Chinese steel industry, there are 2 periods and 5 stages. The first period is the quantity period, including the incremental stage and the quantity reduction stage. The second period is the high quality period, including the merger and acquisition stage and the low carbon stage. And as there is a transition stage between the 2 periods. We call it environmental regulation. So from now on to 2025, It's a combination of stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4, which is very complicated and very vital to successfully build a high-quality steel industry for China. And this is my first introduction of what happened here in China at present. And the second part is about the future trend of the Chinese steel industry. And in my opinion, there are 3 unchanged terms and 10 points of changes in Chinese steel industry. The first unchanged is that the steel industry will continue to be the first change unchanged is the steel production and consumption will remain higher for a long time. Why? There are 3 reasons that as follows. First reason, the potential of Chinese urbanization is still large. In 2018, the urbanization rate is about 60%. So there's a big room for more than 15 points to grow. And the second reason, China is still in the middle and late stage of industrialization, not in the post-industrialization stage. And the third point, China still lags far behind developed countries in terms of per capita housing area, per capita railway density, per capita highway density, namely the so-called shortboard of infrastructure, both in quantity and in quality. And the second unchanged is that the steel industry will continue to be an important basic industry and play a very important role in supporting strategic emerging industries for a long time. The reasons are as follows. First, the iron and steel industry itself has a large economic volume and ranks among the top in the main industrial categories in China. Second reason, China's iron and steel industry has a very strong international competitiveness and is expected to take the lead in the realization of China Manufacturing 2025 plan. The third reason, many strategic emerging industries such as new materials, new energy, and high-end equipment cannot do without the strong support of the advanced steel industry. And the third unchanged is that the steel industry will remain the key target of national macro control and policy measures for a long time. 3 reasons are as follows. The first, China's iron and steel industry is capital-intensive and labor-intensive, with large consumption of resources and energy, and large total emissions, and large use of land, large use of transportation facilities, water, and other public resources, and high social management costs. And second reason, China's steel industry has a long chain. Correlation degrees is very high. For upstream, there's scrap, coal, ore, limestone, alloys, refractory, and for downstream, there are construction, automobile, and shipbuilding, machinery, energy, electricity, household appliance, and so on. So steel industry is a very important indicator of the real economy, which is very important for the top leaders in China. That's why in China so many leaders talk about steel industry so much. And for the third reasons, for iron and steel enterprises, they are all large in scale and are easily for government to take macro control. So it's very, very excisely useful. Next, we will change in what will change in the Chinese steel industry. I think there are 10 points that you should take in mind. First, layout. Layout is one of the 10 points. Last year, several important local governments pushed forward steel layout reconstruction, such as Hebei province, Jiangsu province, and Shandong province. At the moment, it is estimated that a total of 150 million tons of crude steel capacity is under construction or under plan along the coastal regions in China. Besides, up to about 30 million tons capacity of mini steel capacity is under construction in the inland. So the layout is likely to move forward to coastal region. And the second change is capacity and device. In China, we implement a capacity exchange policy in which you have to reduce your capacity, reduce more capacity if you want to build a new plant or if you want to upgrade your device. By the end of 2018, total number of crude steel capacity exchange summed up to about 170 million capacity tons. 20 million of them have been finished, and others are expected to done in the next 2 to 3 years. And finally, the total crude capacity in China will be around 1 billion tons. Accordingly, the device will be larger and be more automatic. The third change is efficiency. Just as what has happened in the big river steel plant in the state of Arkansas in USA, the Chinese steel plants are now implementing artificial intelligence, implementing big data, implementing industrial internet technology to enhance its efficiency. It's not a surprise at all. I believe that if per capita steel output reached to 3,000 tons per year in integrated steel plants, I think we will fulfill this goal in about 3 to 5 years. And the fourth change is environmental upgrading. Chinese Environmental Protection Ministry is pushing forward a campaign of ultra-low emission in steel industry. It's the most strict environmental standards than ever all over the world. All steel plants in China should meet the standards according to time schedule, which differs from across the region. Spatially speaking, 480 million tons of the capacity has to meet the requirement before 2020, and 580 million tons capacity should meet the requirement before 2022, and 900 million tons capacity will meet the requirement before 2025. The fifth change is the business model. Along with demand change and the technical improvement, Chinese steel industry has gone through 4 stages business model. The first and the second are actually the same one. We can call it a scale economy model, during which steel plants rely on large scale to get its margin. The third one is a scope economy model, which means a diversified business can help a lot when the steel sectors face a severe situation. The fourth one is platform economy model. Whether a steel plant is good or not depends more and more on which platform you communicate with your suppliers, you communicate with your cooperators, and you communicate with your customers. At the same time, scale and scope also plays a very important role in basic function. The sixth change is steel consumption structure. The biggest change is that consumption in construction sector will decline in the next decade, while those in industry sector will increase. Another important thing is reduced use of steel, which has developed very well in the automobile sectors. Nowadays, machinery, mechanical sectors, and energy sectors are learning automobile sectors in terms of reducing use of steel in a reasonable way. The speed is very quick. So another one from the perspective of region. Southern China will continue to be the center of the market center of the Chinese steel industry, and its status will be strengthened. Why? That's because 80% of the population increase are in South China. And the seventh change is resource structure. More and more scrap will be used in China. In 2018, China consumed about 220 million tons of scrap. About 180 million tons of scrap are used in steel industry. And the scrap ratio reached to 20% in 2018. And it is estimated that Chinese steel accumulation will reach to 10 billion tons in 2020 and reach to 12 billion tons in 2025. By 2025, scrap in China is expected to be more than 270 million tons, which will create good conditions for the electric furnaces, together with cheaper electricity and low carbon regulation. And the next change is industrial structure. China has hundreds of steel companies, and they distribute averagely in terms of crude steel scale, kind of linear layout. But the situation is changing gradually. In the future, it is more likely to be a dumbbell because of policy direction as well as cost driver. Several big giants and many mini steels will prevail, and the amount of those who are in between will decrease. According to the merger and acquisition policy, 3 to 4 steel groups will be founded, whose capacity is over 8 million tons. and 6 to 8 steel groups will be founded, whose capacity will be over 40 million tons. Actually, a steel group with 100 million tons capacity is already scheduled. Another important change is capital structure. SOE market occupation will continue to decline, I believe. On the other hand, private companies will increase. Why is that? Because the reform of state-owned capital and the reform of state-owned enterprises is going on, and the value system is changing step by step. It will rely more and more on the investment return instead of scale in the past. Generally speaking, private companies are more flexible in investment and more flexible in human resource and salary payment, so which enables them more efficiency. And the last change comes from the enterprise structure. I mean, professional steel companies specialized in steel sector will be less fewer. Some of them will transit to a combination of multiple business groups, just like ThyssenKrupp in Germany, the POSCO in Korea, and Nippon in Japan. The same story is going on in China, like China Baowu Steel in the steel group will build a business cycle system along the steel chain or around the steel chain. And more attention should be paid to 5G technique. It will bring evolutionary change to traditional steel industry plant. In 5G times, the border of a steel plant have to be reset, and the relation among suppliers, manufacturers, and customers will be integrated. All the players are facing huge challenges than ever. So those who don't operate according to the new rule of the 5G times will be excluded from the ecosystem business. All in all, in new era, Chinese steel industry is going through a big and fundamental change, just as I have mentioned above. We concluded 3 constants that will remain unchanged and 10 points of change that will happen in the future. So you can see huge business opportunities is hidden behind what I have said. So by the chance, I wish all of you could do business with China and make money. So the last part, I will shortly make a brief introduction of my institute. So MPI is a think tank, belongs to the central government. We act as a bridge between the government and the companies, and we act as a stepping stone between the foreign investors and the Chinese market. So MPI is not only the most popular institute, but also provides easy access to Chinese market. So, well, that's all about my presentation. So if you have any question, don't feel hesitate to ask me. Thank you.
Any questions from the floor for Mr. Jiang? Let me start with first question, if I may. I'd like to ask about your estimation about future scrap consumption in China. You have already mentioned that there are new electric arc furnaces coming in, but the scrap generation is also increasing. What would you expect about the scrap consumption? How many tons can it reach?
In 2019?
Well, 2019, 2020. In the next few years, let's put it that way.
We believe that in 2019, that the consumption will remain flat, just compared with the consumption in 2018. And the total output will remain about 0.9 billion tons in China. And for the long run, I think we're on the way to down, but not so dramatically down. Maybe we will go down for 1 year, and the next year we will rebound. But in the long run, if you look at the output in 10 years scale, you may see a slowdown.
You mean for the? Sorry, I couldn't get it.
Generally speaking, in 2019, it will remain about 0.9 billion tons of crude steel in China. But in the long run, we will get down.
How about the scrap consumption?
Scrap will be about at 0.8 billion tons.
Okay, thank you. Any questions I have some other questions, but if there are any questions from the floor, I can continue with those. No? Okay. I'd like to ask about iron ore too. China obviously imposed import restrictions on Australian coal before iron ore. I'd like to ask about the coal. How do you think that will have an impact on Australian coal prices if China goes on with these import restrictions? What would be the impact on the market?
We believe that the price of iron ore will remain at the present level. But compared with 2018, the price will go up about $20 per ton. But in 2019, we are not expected to see the price go up about 100.
How about coal? Coking coal?
Cocoa, we didn't do so much about research on cocoa. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Still no questions from the floor? Not, I guess. One last question about this dam disaster in Brazil. Obviously, Vale is going through some difficult situation, and the output will go down. Exports will go down. You have already mentioned about your price expectation, but how serious this is going to be in terms of Chinese iron ore imports? Because China is by far the largest, single largest iron ore importer in the world.
I believe that that is not a big issue that will impact the price so much. The price slow down or go up, that maybe impact so much about one's anticipation. People's anticipation pushed forward the price so much. Because in China, we also can produce, in the market, we can produce the iron ore. It depends on the price. If prices go up a little bit, maybe Chinese domestic, we can produce more.
What's that price level? Is it like $90?
It is about $90 per ton. That will make the output of domestic producer of iron steel of iron ore will go up.
Okay, yes. So that's the reason why you think the prices will be.
As I have mentioned, we have a lot of scrap to supplement the market, and as well as we have a lot of inventory in the seaport. We have more than 100 million tons, about 130 million tons iron ore deposit in the seaport. So we have enough tools, enough method to deal with the situation.
Okay, thank you very much. Still no questions. So I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation.